Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to go through a number of news articles that I'd seen over the last few weeks that said petrol to be banned in the EU by 2035. It's all nonsense of course, so let's have a look at what's really going on behind the story. Okay, so this story has bubbled up again because the EU has decided that from 2035 it will be banning the sale of all new petrol and diesel cars. And of course some of the news stories, certainly the headlines, the clickbait, has been all about petrol banned from 2035 in Europe. And as I said in the intro, that's certainly not the case. So let's have a look at where we are in the EU, where we are in the UK, what's coming up, and then a quick look around the US and other countries as to what's actually happening. In the 27 EU countries, the situation seems quite clear. From 2035, you won't be able to buy a new petrol or diesel car or motorcycle, but petrol and diesel fuel will still be available for the foreseeable future, as I just said. The situation in the UK is a little different, however. The UK government has decided that petrol and diesel car sales will be banned from 2030, 5 years earlier than the EU, and 10 years earlier than they'd originally planned. Hybrids, so petrol electric or diesel electric cars, however, have been given a further grace period of 5 years, allowing them to be sold until 2035, providing they can travel a significant distance in zero emission mode, with the engine switched off. In other words, quite how far a significant distance is not quite clear yet. With motorcycles, it's a little bit more complicated again. There's a government proposal which has been out for consultation. That's now back with the government for their response to that. And they're proposing that all petrol sales will have to stop by 2035. However, mopeds, so class 1 and restricted 125s, those that obviously the learners that are restricted to 11 kilowatts, will have to stop being sold by 2030. So only some 7 years away. And this is where it gets interesting and begs the question, will manufacturers be tempted to go a bit mad between 2030 and 35 and de-restrict the remaining 125s, or indeed sell the 150cc variants that we see in so many other markets as a cheap A2 alternative in the UK? Because if the restricted 125 market is effectively being killed off for petrol bikes, you might as well flog a few unrestricted 125s or 150s to those with A2 or full licenses, right? I'd certainly like to see bikes like Honda's CBR 150, Yamaha's R15 and Suzuki's GSX R150 with 19 horsepower come to the UK, even if it's only for 5 years. The only downside might be that as this window only applies to the UK and not to the EU, would the importers be interested in bringing in machines only for the UK market? And I for one certainly would hope so. Further afield in the US, California plans to end the sale of petrol or gas-powered cars by 2035 too, and President Biden has stated that the US government will end gas-powered vehicle purchases by 2035, though Biden has resisted calls rather to ban the sale of gas cars more widely from this date. It'll be interesting to see if this changes going forward. As an aside, and it's perhaps rather ironic that domestic lawnmowers and other petrol-powered garden equipment in the UK are still not regulated and produce over 10 times the emissions of carbon monoxide compared to a small petrol hatchback car, let alone a motorbike. However, in California, there are plans afoot to ban petrol lawnmowers from 2024, I believe, and Los Angeles and Berlin have already banned petrol-driven leaf blowers. So I suspect these are likely to be targeted next, certainly for domestic users. Anyway, I digress somewhat. So is it time to start panicking? No, I don't think so. The reality is that bikes over 125cc can still be sold until at least 2035, some 12 years away. And now, while that might mean we see fewer new engine designs coming to the market in the years ahead, certainly the more complex ones with longer development payback periods, there's no immediate threat to any of the great bikes out there on the roads today. So looking further ahead, for those of us wondering how long we'll be able to keep existing bikes on the road, well, that looks pretty positive at this stage, to be honest. Clearly petrol will still be available beyond the point where petrol cars can no longer be sold, and if the example of leaded and lead replacement petrol is anything to go by from a few years ago, I think petrol will still be available for at least 10 years after the last petrol bikes are sold, which takes us out to about 2045, some 22 years into the future. Even beyond that, synthetic carbon neutral e-fuels may well be allowed in limited quantities to keep those old classic R1s on the road, etc. Who knows what it's going to look like that far out. Anyway, hope that's been of interest. Just a brief update there on a story I've seen running over the last few weeks. Just wanted to do a quick response to that, I guess, and put anyone's minds at rest who thought that there may be a lack of petrol coming up in the near future. That's certainly not the case, and the future looks quite rosy for those of us who want to keep petrol bikes on the road for a little while longer yet. Apologies for the mess that is the garage. There's lots of sorting out to be done here. I've got some bits through from the MZ, so there will be an update on the MZ with the barrel off and new piston and barrel fitted, and hopefully that gets us to a point where we can turn the bike over and maybe even get it going. Thanks as ever for watching. If you can like, and feel free to comment down below, I'll reply to all the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers for now, guys. Bye bye.